If you're wishy-washy about it, if you're not sure, then some people are going to step all over you. I know this can be hard as women because we, again, are taught to be very accommodating, very helpful, but it's really important that we stick to our boundaries. And we don't have to be rude about it. You can be direct without being apologetic, unless sometimes people need rudeness to get the point across. Welcome to the Process to Profit podcast, where I dig into the key strategies that build successful service-based businesses. Whether you're just starting out or you're looking to scale, I'll share practical techniques to help you overcome overwhelm, boost your income, and fall in love with your business again. Let's get your business working for you. Hey everyone, welcome to today's episode. Today, we're covering one of my most requested topics. How do you set boundaries as a business owner? And there are a lot of business owners out there, women in particular, who really struggle with setting boundaries. And I think a lot of it has to do with how we were raised, and we were always raised to be helpful and be supportive and want to, give of ourselves to everyone else. But when you're a business owner, that can be really draining and really detrimental, honestly, to your business. So today we're going to be talking about how you actually set those boundaries, and I'm going to show you some ways that you can even use systems to set boundaries for you. One of my clients is a web designer, and she was constantly saying yes to new things. She was always adding in more clients to her client roster, even when she was already maxed out. She was saying yes to things that were not in scope for the client that she was working with. And she was constantly saying yes to additional projects, either for older existing clients or friends of clients, things like that. And she wasn't really saying no to anyone or anything. And she really lost herself in her business. She was struggling to find time to She was struggling to find time with her family. She was struggling to even take a step back to learn how to be the CEO of her business. And she was really at a point where something needed to change. So the first thing that we did together, and the first thing that I always recommend my clients do, is we figured out what her priorities were. Is it her existing clients? Is it her family? Is it building her business bigger? Like, what does she want out of her business, out of her life? What does she want that bigger picture to look like? Because without understanding what that bigger vision is and what your priorities actually are, it's hard to say no to the things that don't get you there and don't get you any further in getting towards that bigger vision, getting towards those goals that you want. So we always start by defining what that is so we know where we're trying to get to. And you can figure this out for yourself by thinking about what truly drives growth and happiness for you in your business, and what are your values that you're building your business around. So the foundation of having good boundaries is clarifying your priorities. And by understanding your priorities, then you understand where you want your time to be going, what's the most important to you, and that makes it a lot easier to say no to things that aren't within those priorities or aren't important to you. Maybe spending more time with your family and less time working is a priority for you. Now you understand that and can set boundaries around that. And we're going to get more into detail about how you actually set those boundaries, but understanding the priorities first is key to be able to set your boundaries. So some questions you can ask yourself to understand what your priorities are, depending on the time frame. What's the most important work I should focus on today? What kind of tasks actually move my business forward, and what kind of schedule allows me to work effectively without burning out? For example, if deep creative work or CEO level strategy is your priority, boundaries must protect that time from interruptions like client emergencies or admin work. Checking your email is not an emergency. Once you understand what your priorities are, then you should identify any boundary violations and patterns. Before setting any new boundaries, you should track where your time and energy are being drained. For example, if clients are expecting immediate responses at all hours of the day and night, if calls or meetings keep eating into your focused work time, keep getting shifted around, or you're not protecting your calendar, if deadlines are constantly shifting because of other people's requests and demands, those are all red flags around potential boundary violations. For example, if you notice that you are always answering emails late at night, then that's probably a boundary that needs to be addressed. Once you've identified your priorities and your potential red flags that are already happening, then you can set clear, non-negotiable boundaries. Boundaries should be firm, clear, and easy to communicate. For example, you should have boundaries around time. I only take client calls on Tuesdays and Thursdays. You should have communication boundaries. I respond to emails within 24 hours, not instantly. and only on business days. And then if you do client work, you should also have boundaries around scope. Revisions beyond the agreed upon scope will require an additional fee. Easy enough. And if you're really struggling to figure out how you actually set these boundaries or push back on these boundaries, these are things that we can work on together in my CEO Focus and Flow Power session, understanding what your issues are with boundaries and how we can set better ones, and then how we can actually maintain them and enforce them. One of the best ways to enforce your boundaries is by creating systems that do it automatically for you. Use an autoresponder for any emails that come in so people have a realistic expectation of when they can expect a response. You should use a scheduling tool to implement limits on your calendar so that people can't schedule any old day and time. My calendar is only available Tuesdays and Thursdays for clients. That is the only time that they are allowed to book time with me. And you should be really clear about laying out these boundaries up front. You can use your onboarding process to make sure that you're doing that. You can use that email autoresponder to lay out your boundaries really clearly. Anything that you can do to automate this so that people are really clear up front about what your boundaries are will really help you in reinforcing them. And a really key point in this is that you have to have confidence when you're communicating your boundaries. If you're wishy-washy about it, if you're not sure, then some people are going to step all over you. I know this can be hard as women because we, again, are taught to be very accommodating, very helpful, but it's really important that we stick to our boundaries. And we don't have to be rude about it. You can be direct without being apologetic, unless sometimes people need rudeness to get the point across. But don't apologize for your boundaries. You don't need to justify anything to anyone. Let me say that again. Do not be apologetic. You do not need to justify anything to anyone. It is your business. It is your time. It is your life. These are the boundaries that you have set, and other people have to respect that, or they don't need to do business with you. You can also, if you're feeling a little bit guilty about setting boundaries for the first time, frame it as a benefit to them. For example, I don't set emails after 6 p.m. so that I can be fully present for my clients. Really, you're saying, don't bother me after 6 p.m. because I'm not going to be fully paying attention to you anyway. Or rather, really what you're saying is, don't expect a response after 6 p.m. because if I do, I'm probably not going to be paying 100% attention to what I'm writing anyway. And if someone is continually, repeatedly pushing your boundaries, keep repeating yourself. Keep making it very clear to them that these are your boundaries and they can either respect it or hit the bricks. And let's be honest, setting boundaries is really easy on paper. It's enforcing them and holding to them that can be really difficult, especially for business owners and especially for women. If someone crosses one of your boundaries, then you can remind them the first time politely. Just a reminder, I only take calls during business hours. You can also take other action if you need to. If a client is repeatedly ignoring your policies, charge them for extra time or end the working relationship. And finally, you have to stick to your own rules. If you are not following your own rules, then no one else is going to do it for you. Another way that you can use systems to enforce your boundaries, I learned from Denise Duffield Thomas in her podcast, Chill and Prosper. She talks about using email aliases for her accounting team. And she would say, Bob from accounting is not allowing this refund, or Sheila from accounting is not allowing this refund. An interesting fact that she found, that she talked about in her podcast, was that people respected boundaries more when they came from a male accountant than they did from a female accountant. So take that for what it's worth. But if you're feeling like you don't want to push back on people, or you're feeling guilty about pushing back on people, you can always create sort of that fake persona. It also helps your business seem a little bit bigger if you want that. But you can create that fake persona that is the person that's pushing back on them, that then you don't have to feel like the bad guy. It's Bob from accounting. So for example, my client always kept saying that she wouldn't take on last minute conferences and last minute projects. But she kept doing it, so people just assumed that she would continue doing it. They kept pushing back on her, and she kept agreeing. She didn't stick to her own boundaries. So people kept pushing her boundaries and pushing her to do things outside of her boundaries, and she kept saying yes, and so it was a vicious cycle. So we worked together to figure out what those boundaries needed to be, and then helped her, and then how she could actually consistently reinforce them with people. And it was hard. It is hard to say no to people, especially if you were used to saying yes. But nothing will change if you don't start saying no to people. And if you're really struggling with how to say no or how to push back on people, you can always ask ChatGPT to write something for you. Write this in a professional, non-bitchy way of pushing back on this person, or reminding them that this is a boundary, or ending the relationship together. Whatever you need to do to get across to them, if you're not sure how to word it, ChatGPT or Claude is a great way to figure out how to say something that you're struggling with saying. For me, it's struggling with saying it in a polite way. And if you're really struggling with boundaries, you really don't know what your boundaries should be or how you can better enforce them, that is something we work together on in my CEO Focus and Flow Power session. So I'm happy to sit down with you in that session, figure out what your boundaries need to be for you to be successful, and then give you that support to actually start enforcing your boundaries. So you can book your session at laurenglenn.com/power or at the link in the description or in the show notes. So remember, as a business owner, and especially as a woman, it's really important to be setting boundaries in your business. Otherwise, you're just going to be stuck focusing on everyone else's priorities. You can use systems or processes to enforce your boundaries and tools to make sure that people can't do things outside of what you want them to do. Things like your autoresponder, things like your email scheduler. And then the key is to just keep being confident around your boundaries. Really understand that this is what's right for you, this is what's best for your business, and honestly, this is probably what's in the best interest of your clients as well, if you're able to hold your boundaries so that you can serve them better. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you got useful information out of it, I hope you enjoyed this episode and you're able to better practice setting and sticking to your boundaries as a business owner. If you got useful information out of it, if you found value in it, please like and subscribe, leave a review if you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And I would love to hear from you. I love reading every single one, and I am happy to see what you have to say around the podcast. You can also reach out to me on Threads at Lauren G Consulting. I love chatting over there. Happy to hear from you over there as well. Next week, we're going to be talking to my friend James Allen all about how to create an online course from all of that knowledge that you have packed into that brain of yours. And then another future episode, we're going to be talking about another one of my most requested topics, balancing productivity and creativity in your business. How do you figure out where your time and energy should be going? So we're going to be talking all about that in the future. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of those upcoming episodes. And if you listen to this whole episode and you're still like, I just don't know how to manage my calendar to set these boundaries, then I want you to listen to one of my earlier episodes, Is Multitasking Killing Your Productivity? Episode number 3. I'll make sure to link that in the show notes and in the card up here. And I will talk to you again soon. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.